Thailand builds more cars than almost any country in Southeast Asia. It exports electronics by the billions. It sits inside Japan's manufacturing supply chain. And yet a huge share of its workforce works off the books, by choice, including people who already had formal jobs and left them for it. Why would a country capable of building an auto industry still run on folding tables and no receipts?
That's the mystery. Not why is Thailand poor? It isn't. Not why didn't Thailand industrialize? It did. The mystery is narrower and stranger than that. Why does a country with real industrial capacity still have so many capable workers choosing to opt out of it? This isn't a small anomaly. Thailand's own 2023 labour survey counted it directly. 21 million workers, 52% of the entire national workforce, working informally. One of the highest shares in Southeast Asia, and far higher than other countries at a similar income level. That's not a rounding error. That's a pattern big enough to shape the whole economy. Normally, as a country gets richer, economists expect a predictable pattern. It happened in Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. Workers move from farms to factories, and eventually into formal corporate structures where productivity scales. But Thailand's trajectory split. It industrialized, it became the automotive hub of Southeast Asia, but the informal sector never shrank.
So let's test the obvious explanations, one at a time. Explanation 1. These are people with no other choice. The poorest workers pushed into the informal sector because the formal one won't take them. Here's where that explanation breaks. In 1997, the financial crisis shut down company after company in Bangkok. Research on the vendors who filled the sidewalks afterward found something specific. Most of them didn't drift there out of desperation. They used the exact business skills from their old formal jobs to build something of their own. People with formal jobs already in hand who walked away from them on purpose. That's not what no other choice looks like.
Explanation 2. It's culture. Thai identity, built around food, around small-scale trade, around a marketplace tradition older than any factory. Not economics. Heritage.
That's not the whole story either. Look at Vietnam. It shares a massively vibrant street market culture and similar regional traditions, yet over the last 2 decades, it has seen a much sharper, aggressive structural shift of its workforce into formal export manufacturing. Culture doesn't sustain itself at this scale in a vacuum. It grows where the incentives let it survive. And the incentives here are specific. Vending offers income the worker controls directly, hours nobody else sets, and margins that hold up better than they look. A university survey of Bangkok's vendors found that 82% called their earnings adequate, not despite the small margins, but with them fully priced in. Call it culture if you want. It's culture that happens to pay.
2 explanations tested. 2 eliminated. So what's actually going on? Here's the real explanation. This isn't failure, and it isn't heritage. It's a rational, individually smart response to a formal labour market that often can't outcompete the alternative. Millions of workers ran the math on autonomy versus a factory floor, and autonomy won often enough to reshape the entire employment structure of the country. But rational for the individual isn't the same as good for the country. Because here's the part nobody talks about. Informality has a price, and the worker rarely sees the bill until much later. No payroll tax paid in means no pension building up. No formal employer means no protection if the cart doesn't sell tonight. The OECD ran the numbers on what it would take to fix this. Even if every uninsured informal worker in Thailand paid into the system at the maximum rate, it would raise government revenue by less than 0.5% of GDP. The hole is that deep.
And it's businesses that almost never grow past a single cart, a single stall, a single owner.
And that's where the mystery stops being about vendors at all.
Multiply one smart, self-employed decision by a few million people, and you get an economy full of small, productive, permanently small businesses, each one doing fine individually, none of them scaling into the kind of firm that pulls a country from middle income to high income. Economists have a name for this: the middle income trap. Countries that get rich enough to leave poverty behind, but never build the kind of firms that make the next leap to high income. Thailand has been sitting inside it for over a decade. So the mystery was never really, why do so many Thais choose the sidewalk? It was, what does a country look like when millions of good individual decisions add up to a collective ceiling nobody voted for? Thailand built real factories, real supply chains, real industrial capacity, and it still can't fully escape a trap made almost entirely of rational choices made one cart at a time. Ask a vendor if she'd trade her cart for a factory badge and a pension, and don't be surprised if she says no. She's already run that math for herself. What she hasn't been asked is whether her decision, multiplied by a few million others just like it, is quietly deciding something much bigger than her own income, whether this country crosses the line from developing to developed at all.